The key players in this, Robert Covington from Minnesota to Houston. That's the big wing player they wanted. Atlanta gets the center, Clint Capela. They've been on the market for. And then Denver moves out Malik Beasley and Hernan Gomez. They go to Minnesota in this deal.
Okay.
Minnesota gets Atlanta's first-round pick via the Brooklyn Nets. So they'll have now another first-round pick coming in this draft. You know, all this culminating tonight, this 4-team deal, when talks between Minnesota and Golden State that would have added to that 3-team deal a 4th team. It would have been DeAngelo Russell, Andrew Wiggins. Those talks fell apart, and then Minnesota pivoted, got Denver involved, and they just got the deal done now.
So if I hear you correctly, and again, there's a lot of moving pieces here, the key thing that for Minnesota, they were hoping to get at least a first. They got it. And DeAngelo Russell, who was thought to perhaps be on the market, does this mean that he's staying put, or does it just mean Minnesota's out as far as a trade partner?
Well, Minnesota's out as a trade partner right now for him. You got the deadline is Thursday at 3 p.m. You know, New York has been a team that's had some interest in DeAngelo Russell. We'll get to that in a minute. I don't know if New York's in a position right now to pull off that kind of a deal. The Warriors know, listen, they can take Russell into the offseason, take a look at the draft in July if they want to move him on. You're going to see Golden State now try to move some contracts off and get out, kind of lower their luxury tax bill.
We know that Andre Iguodala is headed to Miami. Who else is Pat Riley targeting, though?
Danilo Gallinari in Oklahoma City and Miami, Memphis, and Oklahoma City. They were on the phones late last night. They'll be back on this morning trying to complete a 3-team deal that will land Pat Riley. As you said, not only Andre Iguodala, but Danilo Gallinari. And this is an organization in Miami who, you know, had a resurgence this year in bringing in Jimmy Butler, the growth of their young players, and now the chance to put together a group that may be able to compete with Milwaukee and Toronto at the very top of the Eastern Conference.
And this deal is very complicated because when you look at the money factor, in a normal deal, you would have to take 125% because Miami is in the hard cap. 39.8 is coming in with Andre Iguodala and Danilo Gallinari, and you basically have to match that money. So if you're the Heat, you have to send out players like Justice Winslow, possibly Dion Waiters, James Johnson, just to get that within those parameters there.
Adrian Wojnarowski tweeting, DeAngelo Russell is going to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Andrew Wiggins.
Wow.
Look at this.
Oh, wow.
We also have a 21 protected first-round pick, a 2022 second-round pick. Warriors will send also Jacob Evans, Amari Spellman to the Timberwolves as well. Woo, Brian.
So that's a huge win for the Wolves because what the Wolves wanted to do, the reason this was slowing it down, they did not want to give their 2020 first-round pick unprotected. A couple of days ago, that was the kind of deal that Golden State wanted. They were willing to take Wiggins, but they wanted to be incentivized with multiple picks, including this year's pick, which we know is going to be very good. For the Wolves to be able to make this deal without having to give up their pick this year is just a tremendous deal. Completely energizes that team and really changes their outlook, especially considering they still have other assets that they did from the Robert Covington deal.
Andrew Wiggins is going to Golden State, Paul. DeAngelo Russell finally united with Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. This is huge. Can you give us the latest on DeAngelo Russell to the Timberwolves and Andrew Wiggins going back to the Warriors?
Yeah, Rachel, those were conversations that picked up again. You know, after Minnesota did the deal with Atlanta and Houston the other day, they've got, you know, a lot of it had been built around, Rachel, number one, how much salary Minnesota would be taking on, and then number two, what the draft pick protections would be. And so that 2021 draft, that Minnesota pick now going to Golden State is protected to number 3. And if it doesn't convey that year, if they're in the top 3, that pick becomes unprotected in 2022. And I think for the Warriors, Rachel, you know, they know they're going to have a high pick in this coming draft. And they're going to have a chance to get one of the very best players. But this is not a deep draft. And I think getting that Minnesota pick the following year had great appeal to the Warriors, and they were able to get that deal done. Gerson Rosas, since he took over as the president in Minnesota, he had targeted DeAngelo Russell. He chased him in summer free agency and stayed on him throughout this year. He has wanted to pair him with Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns wanted to have DeAngelo Russell as his point guard, and now he has him, and Andrew Wiggins goes to Golden State. And I think what will be interesting for Wiggins, Rachel, is, they're going to ask him to play less of a role, have less of a burden than he had in Minnesota. And so you'll see how he responds to maybe taking more of a, especially on offense, taking more of a secondary role with all the great guard talent they have on the Warriors. And I think for the Warriors, they felt in the end that this was their best chance to get the most value for Russell, because there wasn't a team out there who had wanted DeAngelo Russell in the way and really needed a point guard the way that Minnesota did.
Andre Drummond had no trade value at all. The Pistons knew that. They realized it about 3 days ago. They were willing to trade him for second-round picks, and that's all they got. Cleveland was one of the teams that I was watching. Charlotte was the other one, and we'll see what happens now with his player option in the offseason. He has the same agent as Kevin Love, which is kind of an interesting little plot twist. But look, Cleveland needs a center. He's only 25 or 26 years old. He's not that far from the timeline of Sexton and Garland. Like, it's not a crazy trade to get him for nothing. I mean, almost literally nothing.
Right. And do you think that they are interested in re-signing him if he opts out of that deal?
I think so. I don't know why. I mean, I guess you trade for him at this price no matter what, but I would assume, yeah, they do have an interest in re-signing him. I haven't checked in quite yet, but I would assume you don't make this trade if you don't have at least some interest in re-signing him.
What do you think of this deal that not only lands Marcus Morris, but Isaiah Thomas now is a Clipper?
Yeah, I mean, they got just more veterans in the locker room, which is good for a long playoff run. And I think it, for the rest of the season, it allows them to kind of rest some of their other veterans. Their whole thing is they want to get to the playoffs healthy. That's all that's on their mind. They don't care if they get the number 1 seed, home court advantage. They just want to get to the postseason healthy.
There's something else in play.
All right,
the reason they did this deal also was to get out of the luxury tax. So this trade for Marcus Morris pushed him into the luxury tax. Swapping Jerome Robinson to make a little bit more money for Isaiah Thomas gets him a veteran player. You're right, Paul. Gets him out of the luxury tax, which Steve Ballmer isn't trying to save money, but they know that they're going to have to pay the tax in the future.
Billionaires,
So
they're just like us.
The other thing I'll point out is Darren Collison is a guy who's been on the boards for both the Clippers and the Lakers, potentially coming out of his brief retirement. With this trade, even though the Clippers have roster spots, I think it makes it more likely that Darren Collison will not be a Clipper. And if the Lakers decide to go that route, that the Lakers don't have a roster spot right now, they'd have to do something. I think it's more likely that Darren Collison would end up as a Laker.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For highlights and analysis, check out the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, check out ESPN+.